Okay, let's do it. On today's episode of the CLS Experience, we have a very special treat. She's a real estate tycoon and superstar top agent at Douglas Elliman. She's the first and only female cast member of one of my absolute favorite TV shows, Bravo's $1 Million Listing LA. She's the dynamic, stylish, authentic, and ultra sharp realtor to the rich and famous. She's a best-selling author, speaker, and unbelievable mother to her two girls. She's just an overall juggernaut in all facets of life and a terrific human being. Please welcome the iconic Tracy Tutor. How you doing, Tracy?
Iconic. Awesome. That was like a great intro. Let's do it again.
You can take me anywhere you go. I'll do it for you every time.
Yes, I like that.
I did good by you?
Yeah, you did great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you asking. Like I was saying before we went on air, I know you do a bunch of these. I'm a big fan. I love the show. I always have. You stick out to me today, and we're going to keep this fresh. We're going to give the audience a ton of value, but most importantly, we're going to have fun. Before we start the journey, we're going to get a little weird. You ready to get weird?
I love getting weird. Let's do it.
Tracy, what is your superpower?
I would like to be able to be invisible.
Ooh.
Yes.
I take it that's not the first time you've been asked that question.
No, it's not. But I like sometimes, change my mind. But right now, I would like to be able to be invisible so I can be in the rooms and figure out who's talking to shit and who's not.
Yeah. I understand. A lot of that happens, whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah, it's just the way it is. But, and I also think with my job, it'd be very telling.
Why? Is there a lot of politics and stuff like that behind the scenes?
It's not even just politics. It's like, imagine if I could be in the room with the seller and their agent and I'd be a lot more successful. I'd know how to get deals done from A to Z a lot faster. So
fair enough. Being invisible.
What about
you? Ooh, love being challenged. What is my superpower?
What would your superpower be?
So my superpower is the ability to elevate people's state and make them want to take inspired action. What would it be if it was not that, if it was something a little bit different? Being able to fly, that's like a little cliche. I have to think of something a little bit cooler.
I don't know. Invisible is pretty cliche too.
Yeah. Maybe like being able to see through things. Like I love James Bond 007. He used to have those cool X-ray glasses. That just came to the top of my head. They're both cool.
Okay.
Tracy, describe yourself in 3 words.
Outgoing, bossy,
Ooh.
and powerful.
Indeed, you are. That's gripping. And I would have to agree with all 3 of those. What's something weird about you that most people would not know?
I'm pretty out there with everything. I have some weird sexual kinks. I'm totally kidding. Weird about me.
That's awesome.
I was in a singing group when I was about 15 until I was about 17. And I was kind of like a Spice Girly type group. And I was the rapper.
Really?
Yes.
You have a good voice?
I wouldn't say that. I would say, we were kind of like a package deal where some of us sang better than others. Clearly, they moved me into the rapper role. May have not had the best harmony, but, I could dance. And so there you have it. Thought I wasn't going to college, thought I was going to win a Grammy, told my dad that I would not thank him if he did not support me. So yeah, there you go. There's a little tidbit.
It all makes sense now because obviously I'm a fan, but also preparation breeds confidence. I saw that you ended up on Broadway because that was the big dream at first, right?
I wanted to be on Broadway, and that's why I studied theater at USC. But obviously I was in, dance companies growing up and took acting classes and things like that. Then I was in the singing group. Then I ended up at USC studying theater in undergrad, and obviously wanted to be in New York. But ultimately, with auditions and stuff, LA was sort of where we needed to be after college.
Yeah. And everything happens for a reason, as the way it should have been. I know
Yeah.
sometimes
I mean,
it's
full circle moment. I'm on television, back on TV at 40. So who knew?
not a coincidence. This one I'm really curious about because you have so many amazing things going on. Obviously, you're a mother, you got the show, the successful career, and so forth. At this point of your life, Tracy, what makes you feel most alive?
Traveling, like I like something that we haven't been able to do, obviously, in the last couple of years as much, which sort of feeds my soul. Like when I'm working, and particularly with the show now, I do an average of about 30 hours a week on the show, maybe give or take, maybe less actually, maybe 20 hours on the show. And then of course I have my full-time job in real estate, which there are no hours. So I find that when we're like really busy with that, I don't get to travel, but then I make sure to like take 2 weeks in the summer, and I take 10 days in the winter, and I take little weekend jaunts. And with COVID, obviously, we haven't been able to do that. So it's definitely something I've been watching everybody in Europe for the last like 2 months, gallivanting around Greece and Italy and France. And it's pissing me off. So yesterday I booked a trip to Italy.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah. When are you going?
Literally, like last minute, was like, screw this. I had thought about doing it all summer, and then we just were so busy with work, and it's slowing down right now because kids are going back to school, and we have all the Jewish holidays coming up next week. And so it was the perfect time. So I'm going to fly into Naples, and then go to Capri and Positano, and then fly out of Rome.
That's great. When?
Yes. On the 23rd or 22nd of this month.
Good for you. You deserve it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Is this going to be your first trip since lockdown?
First trip to Europe.
But you've been traveling a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I've been to Mexico a couple of times, and I went to New York to visit.
Where? Tulum?
Friends. No, Cabo, just because it's close to LA on the West Coast, but I haven't been to Tulum actually, but yeah. And then I was in the Hamptons for the 4th of July with my kids. That's it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. What is your definition of success, Tracy?
I mean, for me, it's not just monetary stuff. You know what I mean? I really, like, if I'm not traveling and enjoying my life and enjoying my friends and family, like what's it all for? I could go out and sell $500 million in real estate in a year, but then am I enjoying my life while I'm doing that? Like what we do for a living, particularly in the high end, it's a grind, and the people are rough. And so if you don't kind of spread that, and really sort of embrace like your family and friends and take time, it's not worth it to me. So success, then again, is just more well-rounded, doing well in your career and your love life with your friends, enjoying your children, and, obviously experiencing other cultures and eating food and drinking wine. And like, I don't like to like put myself in a hole and be like, you have to do A, B, and C, and it's militant. I like to I want to live. I can drop dead tomorrow. So
this is so profound. I'm just moved by what you just said, because I absolutely agree. I was on Wall Street for 10 years, manufacturing a lot of wealth, and I say that humbly. But then when the pandemic came, I kind of pivoted and have stepped into the personal development space, and obviously taken off, which I'm very grateful for. But it just goes to show you, like, even though I had all those material things before then, I wasn't really happy. I've never been happier than I am now. And I've also, coincidence or not, never been more authentic and aligned with what I'm doing. So I couldn't agree with you more. I have to say, you mentioned wine. Don't you have something going on right now in the wine space?
I do. I'm really actually excited about it, because again, it sort of speaks to like me sort of branching out into different parts of the things that I enjoy, and I love to drink.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, big shock. Anyway, I'm not a sophisticated wine drinker. I just enjoy it. And a couple of friends came to me and said, look, that we have this idea for a wine that, because they're from Sweden. This is actually Frederick Eklund's sister-in-law that came to me. And she's like, in Europe, and particularly in Sweden, we label wine. So we know what the sugar content, the nutritional value is. And I'm so weird. I've always thought and looked at wine as sort of being something that we enjoy to drink, but we don't really want to know what's in it, because then it kind of screws up the piece of enjoyment. but
Understood.
we do it for everything else. And so they kind of got a hold of me. And at first I was like, nah, I just want to enjoy my wine. And when I really started thinking about it, I just want the transparency. And if we're going to do it with our food, and we're going to be, cautious about what kind of coffee we drink, and if it's organic, and if there's sugar added and chemicals and all of that stuff, why wouldn't we do it with the alcohol that we drink? So we formulated something called unsweetened wine, and it's a no sugar wine. So it's done in the fermenting process so that the sugar is extracted in a way that doesn't affect the alcohol in the wine, the content, and it tastes great and it's affordable.
Sounds unbelievable. We have
Yeah.
and we have one of the most rapidly growing podcasts on the planet right now, all over Apple's New and Noteworthy. For the audience listening, should you go check out Tracy's wine? Absolutely, 100%. Where can they find that?
Well, here's the thing. We just launched softly in California. We're working on licensing in the rest of the US, but we had such an incredible response in California that hopefully we're right around the corner from being able to offer it to the entire US market, and obviously branching into Europe soon.
What's that process like to get it licensed in places?
That's out of my territory. I leave that to my business partners, and I'm in charge of sort of the marketing and the branding and exposure of obviously the brand and unsweetenedwine.com. So it's a really cool, I think it's just a cool concept. And I think just being transparent in both your life and just in general is how I want to be. So it sort of slid perfectly into, what I believe in anyway. That's why I'm a big fan of it.
It's authentic to you. And just hearing you speak about it right now, it's very obvious that you're very passionate about it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there's a lot of great wine out there, but, I also have found, and I have friends that are in the wine industry that are super high profile and on a totally different level. And, you talk to these people and they're like, some of the wines that you drink that, are $150 bottles of wine are actually, there's food dye put in them. And you would just never envision in a million years, you go to these like gigantic wineries in Napa where they're $10 million estates and it's spectacular, and they're putting dye in their wine or like additives for what, So I think that's what really became more interesting to me. And I just want wine to be more accessible. I want people all over the country to be able to pick up a bottle of wine and, be able to drink it and not be concerned about, what they're putting in their body.
I personally can't wait to taste it. So there's that.
Well, good.
The audience loves to get a little bit of a journey in the beginning and so forth. You grew up in LA, correct?
I did. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. My dad and mom, we lived out in the valley and never left. I kept trying, like I said, to leave and go to New York and spread my wings a little bit, but ultimately I'm an LA girl.
And your family has a little bit of a background in not necessarily real estate, but construction?
Yeah, my dad is a builder, owns a company called Tutor Perini, and they build casinos, infrastructure, bridges, tunnels, etc.
Cool. So when did you get into the real estate?
When I was sitting in my dad's office after I graduated from USC, and I was like, I don't want to wait tables anymore. I'm like auditioning. This blows. Like, I'm not the pretty girl. I'm not the funny girl. What am I? Like, I didn't fit into any mold. And I was like, I could wake up and be 40 and still be auditioning. Like, this sucks. And I was working in human resources in my dad's office instead of waiting tables at night after a couple of years of doing that. And I just kind of was talking to a girlfriend of mine who had landed a big gig on a TV show at the time. And I'm like, what's it like? And she was like, it's like a business. Like, they're not wrong. It's like show business. There's no like creative outlet. Like, we grew up on stage and it was such like a blessing. We just wanted to be working actors. I never really wanted to be famous. That was never like, a part of the MO. And when she said that to me, it just crushed me. And I hung up the phone and I was like, what am I doing this for? And I realized that in that moment that I really wanted to be financially independent. I wanted to not have to answer to my parents anymore. I didn't want to work in my dad's office, but I also didn't want to wait tables for the rest of my life. I was like, I'm smarter than this. So I decided to get my real estate license. And I figured because I grew up in LA and I kind of knew the landscape that it would come easy to me. And it didn't. But, 21 years later, it's a little success and it's So I'm glad I did it, you know?
A 20-year overnight success, as they
Yeah,
say.
right. Yeah.
But how cool is this? Like, and again, not a coincidence. Like now you kind of full circle, you got the best of both worlds because you developed a career in real estate, a great one. And now you're the star of one of the, the best shows on TV by most people's standards. So you kind of have the best of both worlds. It's funny how it worked out like that.
Yeah, I think I have been blessed. And it was something that, when the show became an opportunity for me via Josh Altman, I had shown a property on the show that he was featuring. And they were like, you guys are funny on camera together. No one ever messes with Josh Altman. And I was like, oh, but I love to. Like, I love messing with him. And so we ended up shooting our negotiation, and it was so much fun. And, they came to me after and said, is there a possibility that maybe we could talk a little bit more about this? And at the time I was terrified. But ultimately I was like, I'm 40 years old. I'm in
40
my
years
own
young.
body. Right. I couldn't do this at 25. I was so out of sorts at that age. Like I was trying to find myself. I couldn't stand on my own 2 feet and be like, I'm very confident in who I am at that time. And so at 40, it's like I was. And so I ultimately made the decision in that moment. I was like, screw it. You know who you are. Do it.
Yeah.
So
I feel like you have, yeah. And I just want to acknowledge you for a second because number one, it takes a lot of confidence. Also, like you had some personal stuff going on around the time, and you knew like that was only going to be magnified. And it wasn't like that was going to get more private if you're on TV and so forth. But you took that shot. And like you said earlier on in the conversation, like what the pandemic taught me is we don't know what tomorrow brings. So you're going to make every single second count. And then from there, I imagine that the show has been a hell of a ride so far.
Well, yeah, it has. And I think ultimately I made that decision. Some might have said selfishly, but it's my life. And I did want to pursue furthering my career in real estate. And I knew that the show could be a great asset. And, despite my ex-husband at the time not wanting to support it, I made the decision to do it anyway. And, here we are. I have no regrets. Jason and I are great friends. We're no longer married, but we're great friends, and we parent our 2 kids. And I think he would also say, like, I'm happy you're doing it. It's taking you where you are today. So it all happens for a reason. I'm just glad that I didn't have the fear in that moment to sort of not to do what he expected me to do or what anyone expected me to do. I knew in my gut that it was my time.
Yeah. And also like one word to describe you, authenticity, right? Like you went with your gut, you had to look out for you. This is your life, so to speak. And obviously there's other people that are involved, but like you said, you wouldn't have had it any other way. And it seems like he feels the same way about that. I appreciate that. Another thing I love that you are in terms of authentic is you're not afraid to curse. Like you are, I feel like why the audience gravitates towards you so much is because it feels like if we were really hanging out, like behind the cameras, all that, you'd be the same exact way.
It's absolutely fucking true. Someone sent me an article like a couple of months back saying, people that curse are actually considered more intelligent. I really liked that article. But, the bottom line is I grew up around my dad, and he had a massive potty mouth, which, by the way, he now calls me out on that shit all the time. But there's a nature to why I do it. And it definitely has bitten me in the ass several times, but it's also served me in rooms where I needed to be heard. And sometimes that the feminine side of me spoke up and I have a pretty strong voice, and, you add a few curse words in here and there, and you let your voice be heard.
Yeah. And one of the words you used to describe yourself early in the conversation was powerful. Sometimes when you curse, like it commands authority and it is delivered in a powerful way. So I think it's pretty cool that you touch upon that.
Thank you. I mean, I think there's a time and a place for it, obviously. And I try to be smart about when I do use it, but to be perfectly honest, I think there's humor in it, and I don't think we embrace it enough. And I think we all take ourselves a little too seriously. And what I do for a living is not brain surgery. If it was, I'd probably curse a lot less, or at least behind closed doors when people were under and couldn't hear me.
Understood. I have to ask you, this is kind of an obvious question from the audience, but like I've had a lot of big people in real estate on the show, people that you would know and so forth. When you're watching $1 million listing, like the art, like the deal going down, it's so exciting. It's exhilarating. Obviously, for one episode or a TV show, you know, they cut out a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and they make it look like the deal closes pretty fast. It's not always like that. How often is it typically like significantly longer than what you see on TV, or is it somewhat accurate that it does happen kind of quick?
It varies. I mean, there are deals that, sometimes we start shooting when we list them in the beginning of a season and maybe they don't close till the end. Sometimes they don't close at all. And
Right.
you'll see like, well, she listed that one and that was an epic fail. But, we're not always closing deals in 10 days, all cash over apps. Not the nature of the beast. And while there's some of the shows, we definitely are trying to walk in line with some of these stories that we're telling you, like as close as we can to when they're happening. But obviously, we can't get into every single listing. And so we have to pick and choose what sellers and what buyers are willing to be on the show and work with us and be open to having cameras sort of living the experience while it's happening. And there's not as many. I mean, my clients tend to be, high profile, private, and a little less inclined to do the show. But then I'm always surprised the people that I least expect that decide to sign up for it as they kind of get going and get into it. They really they enjoy doing it. It's fun.
Exciting.
It's a great memory for people as well.
That's a great point. Depending upon who the client is or the prospect, of course, because I'm obviously, I know sales, like how do you determine when to use like your bossier side or maybe a little bit of your softer side?
Oh my God. I mean, that's instinct, right? And we all have it. And I don't think we listen to it enough. I talk about this in my book quite a bit, just trusting your instinct and trusting your guts. Because 9 times out of 10, when you're in some sort of confrontation with someone sitting across from you, or maybe you're in the boardroom or you're in an interview or you're at a lunch for all I know, and you get a gut feeling about something, and it's like there's that voice in the back of your head, like, that guy didn't just fucking say that to me, did he? You just fucking say that, I'm about to lose it. And the truth is, you either say that out loud in that moment and embrace it, or you tuck it away and you figure out how to sort it out. And I've learned more often than not that when I do trust my gut and I do live in that space more often is when I have more success. Now, granted, you can't call people out all the time. And you also have to be able to read beyond just confrontation. Be able to sort of dip into people's insecurities. And, when you're in a room with someone and, they might be going through divorce and it's a $30 million house and you're sensing that like the woman feels you've got to be able to pick up on that stuff. And that's all instinctual. And that's what I think that women have a really strong sense of, and they don't always trust it because we've always been told, sit, listen, nurture, take care of, and really don't speak up so much. You guys go out, you hunt, you gather, you speak up, you fight, we bake bread. And it's like, no we don't.
Not you, at least.
Not me.
Yeah, that's gold. I love that. You mentioned your book. It's next on my list and I can't wait to read it. What's it called and where can you find it?
Fear is just a 4-letter word. We came out during COVID, which was kind of terrifying because I obviously couldn't do any promotions for it whatsoever. We were in a total lockdown, but interestingly enough, with fear being in the title and obviously talking about it, it did incredibly well in the first week and we made the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. It wasn't something I anticipated. I never considered myself a writer, but I did this because I wanted to speak up to particularly women, not just in my industry, but young entrepreneurs. And I remember when I was sitting down with my editor, they were like, I really think this is going to be a book for women that are like, in their 40s. And I said, I disagree. I think this is actually a book for women in their 20s. Not just in their 20s, but I think it's going to speak to a much younger audience because these are the women that need my guidance the most. It's like, we're all so accustomed to following a certain path in life, and we're supposed to do all of these things and go to college and meet the boyfriend, and by 28 we should be getting married, but by 30 we need to at least be having our first child. I totally followed the path. I mean, I literally, came through with a carriage and a horse down to the aisle for my wedding. Like, I did it. And it's bullshit. And I just felt like it was really important for women to understand that at an early age, not wake up at 45 and be like, oh shit, they were right. But like, there was no one telling me at 20 when I was in college and I was studying to do something. I mean, I still meet young girls that are like, you were such an inspiration to me. Like, I had this boyfriend and I was a junior in college and I just really was going to marry him and start, popping out babies. And now I'm an attorney. So I do want women to kind of have that authentic sort of me, if you will, to sort of say, hey guys, there's a different way to do it. You can be sexy, you can be funny, you can be smart as hell, you can be successful, and you could be a wife and a mother at the same time.
I love this. Is your book on Audible, Tracy?
It's on Audible.
Is it your voice?
Obviously on Amazon. I did do my own voice. I legit cannot stand the sound of my voice. Like, when I hear myself on the show,
Why?
I just feel like I have like such a nasally, like, it's awful. But
your voice is adorable. That's just a story in your head.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, I did do it, and it was actually really fun. I had a good time of doing the Audible.
Yeah, and I think that this ties into something that you often speak about, which is, not being perfect. Right. And I kind of feel like that might have been a little bit of inspiration for the book, the way you just described it. You're very outspoken about that. Is that accurate?
100%. I think that's where it all really began for me. Like, the only reason women know me is from the show. And it's like this, sort of portrayal of luxury real estate. I mean, that's what the show is about. But you don't see all the fails that we have. You don't see the deals that, well, at least most of them, that don't go through. And so I just think it was important to speak up as the first woman on the show.
I can't believe you were the first woman on the show.
Yeah. 9 years without a woman. So finally, season 10, I had that opportunity and I took it. But, more importantly, I think it was about embracing, sort of telling the real truth about it. And, the epic fails that I had along the way, and all of that self-discovery and sort of figuring it out, but also being unapologetic for being young and sort of figuring it out. I fell into real estate. Like, everybody's always like, well, your dad was in the real estate industry, wasn't he? And it's like, no, not really. I mean, he was in construction, so I had background and I was used to being in front of like very gruff businessmen growing up. And so that's a little bit of where I get my grit, I think. But mostly it just happened. And so it was about sort of embracing that sort of unknown, which I think everybody's so terrified of. And I think if you don't fail and you don't know how to recover, then how the hell are you ever going to appreciate any kind of success that you have?
That's right. And fail early, right? Because we'll learn a lesson, which is priceless. People that are scared to take shots and they finally do later in life, and then they have that obstacle, adversity crushes them. Totally.
I mean, I tell my girls that all the time. I try to give them enough rope to hang themselves. No, I'm just kidding. But I do. I try to give them enough rope to be able to fail while they're still living with me. And it's not as painful. But like, you should start taking risks. We can't helicopter parent our way through life, because then when these kids go off at 20 years old that have been coddled their entire life and delivered cars and all sorts of things, and they don't even know how to wipe their ass, much less wash their own clothes. It's like, that story doesn't produce a successful adult. Like, a successful adult is produced by allowing them to fall on their face and letting them scrape their knee, letting them try different things and not be the best at it. Not everybody needs first prize. Like, you can't be the best at everything, and they should know that. So by the time they get to college and they have to compete, and then they get their first job and maybe they got beat out by someone, it doesn't absolutely annihilate their character,
And also, you don't hover over them, correct?
No, I don't, but
I
it
like
served
that.
me well. I was really strict with them when they were littles, and obviously they have great manners and they're really, really wonderful girls. And now they just started school yesterday, and they're like, very independent, great kids, and they're going to fall on their face more. I'm sure Juliet's going to get her license next year, and it's going to be a shit show. But in the meantime, I feel like it's important for them to sort of go through all of this stuff. And then I can give them a hug at the end of the day and say, yes, I know it sucked. You broke up with your first boyfriend, or, you lost in, your horse competition or whatever. You got to learn how to fail, and more importantly, how to recover.
That's so valuable. And
Yeah,
the audience should run that back and re-listen to that again, because adversity and obstacles, spoiler, it's a guarantee in life. It's a
totally.
guarantee. So
Totally.
we got to learn how to handle those and kind
Yeah.
of change our perception towards them and embrace them, so to speak, as lessons.
Yeah, I completely agree.
You often talk about the importance of emotional and physical health, and maybe you neglected it a little while in the past. How insignificant and important is that for you now?
Oh my God. I cannot tell you. And really there was a shift for me at the beginning of the pandemic, because we were all forced to be home, and I couldn't fill my day with other BS with work, or sit in front of the computer and write offers and contracts and all that stuff. It was like you were forced to kind of look in and look at yourself. And you had two choices during the pandemic: cook and lay around on your ass and watch Netflix, or figure out, like, don't get me wrong, I did a lot of that. But I think there was like, in order to stay like emotionally healthy, I had to move. And I think dating and meeting my boyfriend Eric was a big piece of that, because he's a unusually old soul for his age, and really mature and very focused. And I think having him in my life, obviously the expectation is that I'm dating this wild, 20 something, and I'm this cougar. And it's, this very obviously, a label there, right?
Sure.
And it's quite funny, because it really is, I'm sort of a little bit of the wild one, and he's, very focused and calm. And so when I want to blow off steam, he's like, let's go for a bike ride. I'm like, I don't want to go for a bike ride. I want to have a tequila, and I want to sit outside and like bitch about it. And he's like, well, I think there's a healthier way to do that. And it began this habitual thing. And I think, for anybody that's like trying to change something in their lives, you got to, it starts with habit and repetitive, like, performance. So, doing something for 3 weeks or 4 weeks in a row and being freaking militant about it. It's such a short time to commit to something, but it's so freaking important, because at the end of that 4 weeks, you've all of a sudden created a habit. It's like Pavlov's theory. You ring the bell, the dog is like, oh, it's time to eat.
Yeah.
So for me now, I've created this habit where I wake up every morning and I have my routine and I work out. And if I don't, I feel like shit.
Tracy's got gems today. This is fantastic. And I'm the same way. In the beginning of the pandemic, when I pivoted and started my CLS brand, I saw everybody watching Netflix and like day drinking and stuff. And I immediately thought, that's not going to be me. I don't know how long I have right now. I'm shutting down my office. I thought it was going to be 2 weeks last March. Who knew? But I'm going to put myself in that frequency to kind of see if there's anything else out there. And obviously, thank God I did. And I love that you touch upon the fact that he brings out the best of you. Like, maybe you want to do something that's not the most productive, and he kind of helps you see it from a different light. Obviously, he elevates you in that area. And that's how I'm not an expert in relationships, but people should elevate each other. I think that's so special.
100%. And that, that's not necessarily something I would ever have made a choice to do on my own. When you're stressed out and you're going through something, or there's a confrontation you have with a family member or a friend, and I immediately, when I have that kind of anxiety, want to like call my girlfriend, have a bottle of wine, sit outside and like agonize over it or whatever. And that's not good for anybody. So it's really sort of shifted my view on things, and I'm lucky to sort of have that, because it's changed everything.
And you mentioned the morning routine. We got to ask you, because you never look better. You're on fire. You look like an action figure. What kind of workouts do you do?
It's funny. This morning, I got up, and it was like Eric had a 7 o'clock that had canceled, or sorry, I had a 7 and he had an 8 o'clock that canceled. So he's like, we can do a twofer. And I was like, oh, God. But it really is sort of a thing for me in the morning where I wake up and I have to have 30 minutes in the morning before I do anything. And I have my celery juice every morning and it's a routine for me. And I need to have my coffee and just my quiet time. But I don't even come downstairs. There's no robe. I don't even have a robe. Every time someone gives me one, I'm like, thanks, but no. I really do. I don't come downstairs until I'm ready for the day and dressed with my gym stuff on, so that I really don't have that choice. And then I head outside and I do some kind of cardio or a hike, and then I take that hour and a half to myself.
Tracy time.
Yeah.
Do you meditate?
By the way, it centers me. Our life as realtors, and anyone that does what I do for a living can relate. The highs and lows of this job are bananas. One day you're on top and it's I've got 100 million in escrow. I am slaying it. And the very next day, a client's you're an ass and we're backing or whatever. And it's it happens that fast. And it's such a roller coaster. And anyone that's married to someone like me or has a partner that's in our industry understands this. And I think obviously being in finance too, just the highs and lows of managing people's money is such a stressful job that taking care of yourself in the physical sense is such a crucial part of being able to block it all out and start over again. Otherwise, you're just consistently carrying that shit and that anxiety with you every day. And you wake up, I go to bed at night and it's tick tock, which client, and you have to shut it off.
Yeah. And this is deep. And it's something I've been working on a lot of these mindfulness, just being super present, not worrying about 5 minutes from now or 5 minutes there, just being 100% present like I am with you now. And it's with those types of professions, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, how do you handle that? And now, because you've been through it, obviously 20 years of experience, do you catch yourself I'm not going to get too high when a deal looks really promising?
Yes, absolutely. If I've learned anything, is the deal is never done until it's really done. But the highs and the lows can be really difficult, and you have to manage that. I allow myself to be upset about something. I will give myself that beat to be pissed off or to be sad about a deal going awry or a client treating you with disrespect or whatever. And then it's you got to kind of brush it off and move on, because you can't carry it with you, because that, wherever you're going next and whatever meeting you're going to be in, it's people see right through that. If you can't live in the moment and leave the last meeting behind, or you're distracted because you had a fight with your girlfriend or whatever, and then all of a sudden you have to walk into a pitch, you're just not going to be present, and people pick up on that.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. When people look at you, I imagine, because the vibe that I get from you, and a lot of the people do too, is that you're super confident. And of course, I believe that you are, but I'm sure you have your moments just like everybody. What does confidence mean to you, Tracy?
I mean, listen, you do the best that you can. I definitely have my low points. I have my insecurities in personal relationships, and I struggle with that. Listen, I was married for 14 years with my ex-husband for 18. That was a devastating loss to recover from. But I learned so much in it. And I learned my ability to recover from things is actually much more than I ever thought was possible. And, now, yeah, there were so many times where I hated my ex-husband or whatever. And there was a period of a couple of years where I really wasn't present, not for my clients. And I struggled with doing the show, and it was a really difficult time. But I think obviously being on the show was this weird, sick sort of therapy for me, where I had to wake up every day and I had to live in that space, because really no one knew what was going on in my life personally. And I had to sort of face the music. And then, I don't know, time and sort of attention to yourself and sort of recovery. Now it's I've forgiven my ex-husband. We're friends. He's building my house.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing how much you can heal. But, the confidence piece is tough for everyone. And you just have to embrace where you are. And if you're going through a difficult time, embrace it, but have a place and a time to talk about it. You can't carry that around with you all day.
Yeah, I love all this. I have to ask you a weird question. You cannot answer if you don't want to. Reality television, how scripted or unscripted is it really?
I mean, I've never read a script, not on my show. I mean, the truth is, like, we're all on million dollar listing big personalities as it is, and we definitely have an opinion, and we're really talking about something that we're experts in. So at least I know my experience, and I bet everybody on my show could say the same thing. When we're in the moment, we are speaking absolutely without script. That's just the nature of what we do. I can't
Yeah.
speak to other shows, but ours is 100% unscripted.
I think that's why so many people gravitate towards it, aside from the fact that it's just real estate, because it looks so authentic. I have to ask you this. I'm so curious. You obviously, some of your clients or prospects are some of the most well-known people, or even if they're not on the show necessarily, you deal with high-end people who got their shit together, very successful. Something that I heard you say is that whenever you walk into a room or every interaction, you're always in your head, you're everyone's equal.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, with the confidence piece and walking into a room where you're dealing with massive egos, incredibly successful people, some are team players, some are not. It depends on their personality type and where they are in that day and in that moment. And they're not always going to be ready to receive you, but you have to be ready. So I always say to myself, like, before I go into any big pitch or meeting, like, give myself a minute to just get out whatever anxious energy I have or whatever my energy is. I just take a beat and I'm like, where am I? What am I walking into? And let's connect. Because really, these types of, in my job and really in anybody's job, it's about connection. Someone is not going to relate to you when you walk into the room if you are not freaking present.
Yes.
And if you're not authentic, you're not going to connect. But if you're just vanilla and you put on this facade and you're like, I'm here to pitch and, let me share the statistics with you, all they're hearing is wah 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 wah, because no one gives a shit. At the end of the day, it's always about connection. You could be the most successful guy in the world, but if you can't sit across from someone and connect with them on that level and look them in the eye and find commonality, then you're not going to win the business. Certainly not every time.
Yeah, no, it's so profound. And I agree with you 100%. And that kind of segues into something else I wanted to ask you. I heard somewhere that you speaking about when you're frustrated, and this is a really cool technique. When you're very frustrated about something, you might put words down on paper and obviously just leave it at that, not say it to the person, not send a letter, anything like that, but it's a little therapeutic, something like that.
Oh God, if you opened my phone and went to the notes section.
How bad? Let's get deep.
Oh my God, I have crafted more emails and more texts and never sent them, just to sort of get out some of that anger and that, that which comes first, right? Anger is always sort of the first emotion. And I think it's important to embrace it and, feel it and recognize it, and then sort of say, okay, now how can I be more effective in communicating this? Because communicating with anger, and I am totally guilty of this. I did this 2 weeks ago on a closing where someone screwed me on commission, and I just said, you're an asshole. And I really should have written the email and then not sent it. But I can't be perfect all of the time, and I think it's such an important thing to do by just taking that step, getting your thoughts on paper immediately as it's happening, so that you can process them yourself better. I sometimes find myself getting so angry, I'm not even sure what I'm upset about anymore. And I think when you put it in writing, right? Like, then everything becomes a little bit clearer. And then you can kind of be like, okay, now I'm ready to confront this person in a healthy way that hopefully gives us the result we're looking for.
Composed way, not so emotional.
I mean, you can still be passionate about how you feel about something, but you're going to be ineffective if you come from that angry place, which, again, I've done it. I failed in many, many, many confrontations for that reason. And so I've just learned that, from time to time, if I just take a beat and I slow down, then I'm going to be more effective at communicating what I want to get across.
All I got out of that was you're on fire and you can't be stopped.
I wish I was on fire. No, listen, it's like a long road, and it's like this never ending journey. And I don't feel like I'm even remotely there yet, but I do feel like I like enjoy sharing, with people like you. I like talking about it because it's so easy for all of us to get caught up in the day-to-day minutia and wake up and like cut to it's 9 p.m. and you go to bed and you start all over again, and then you're just fucking miserable. And just by like talking about it and having these dialogues is like, it's going to be good for the rest of my day and to be more productive.
Same. And I'm glad that you brought it up. There's so much gold in this conversation today. I'm gonna wrap it up with a couple fun questions, Tracy. What's the most fun and exciting thing about selling high-end real estate for you?
I mean, the best thing that's ever happened to me, like really, was when I got a phone call from Janet Jackson.
You tell.
It was maybe the coolest thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, I was a big fan of hers growing up. And
who was it?
I don't know, younger people.
True.
Anyway, I know my boyfriend was like, really? And I'm like, dude. But you have an opportunity to meet certain people, at this level, and meeting her for me was one of the most incredible, exciting, like real estate moments of my life. But really, like in a general sense, the happiest thing for me truly is not representing sellers actually, but representing a buyer and walking into a house and they don't really know what they want. And you're able to sort of help them find like that.
Guide them.
Yeah. And then when it connects with them and they're grateful, it's just the coolest thing in the world.
It's the best. And you form these cool relationships. And look, like before the show, obviously you were successful, but maybe you didn't have people like Janet Jackson reaching out to you. So just so cool how everything's happening. And especially what you just said. What's the most challenging thing of selling high-end real estate?
Attorneys. A lot of times when you're dealing with high profile clients, we have to deal, particularly in California, it's such a litigious state, and our real estate practice here can be quite complicated. But also, like I said, and I try to stick by this, like all we're doing is trying to find you a home. At the end of the day, we have to protect you, and that's our job. And sometimes attorneys can't see to the finish line. It's like all they see is the problem that's directly in front of them. And so a lot of times they can be a thorn in my side when I'm trying to bring a buyer and seller together on a deal, because ultimately I know that's what they want. Understood.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
This might be the obvious question, but where can the audience catch up with you aside from Bravo? What do you have going on right now? What are you most excited about, and how can the audience all support you?
Oh, thank you. Well, we're premiering on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And it's a super sized episode, which I haven't even seen yet, FYI.
You mean super sized?
No, it's like an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be, I hope.
Honestly, it's not long enough.
So that's going to be Thursday on Bravo at 8/7 Central. So you can catch obviously the beginning of this season there, and it's going to be a big season for us. A lot of exciting things happening. And then of course my book you can find on Amazon, Audible.
If you want to hear her beautiful voice, you can download it on Audible.
My annoying voice. And also of course I'm on Instagram, and I really do try to get to my DMs and stuff at Tracy Tutor, and just connect with everybody as much as I possibly can. So
yeah. And my audience is very engaging. They're definitely going to stalk you a little bit in the best way. I'm going to tag you on some stuff on Instagram. What's up with Frederick? Is he in LA or in New York now? Which show?
He has come to LA and is joining us this season.
Oh, that's big news. That wasn't a secret, was it?
What?
Was that a secret?
No. It's out there. It's been out for a while now, but yeah, he finished shooting New York and came to LA before New York finished shooting and started shooting with us. So a lot of drama in that department. You'll see. You'll have to watch.
Grab the popcorn. We'll end up with this one final question for all little girls coming up right now, even little boys, whatever the case would be, anyone that wants to chase a dream, but they're scared about what might happen. What do you think the most important characteristic is to fight through adversity and to keep pushing?
Well, my philosophy is you've got a lot of people to prove wrong. So don't stop, keep going. And you know what? Whenever you feel doubtful, go to bed, wake up the next day and do it all over again. You got it.
Bang. Mic drop. This was so much fun. I told you it'd be different. We keep it fun. Tracy, I just want to say you're the definition of resilience, grit, and heart. From following your passion of selling high-end real estate, seizing the opportunity to join one of America's favorite shows, and becoming the first and only female cast member on $1 Million Listing LA. You're a role model and beacon of hope for anyone coming up today with big goals and aspirations. I could personally guarantee your best is yet to come. You're someone I admire, I appreciate, I respect very much. Keep spreading your wings, and you have my word right here, right now. This will absolutely not be the last time that you and I collaborate.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. That was so sweet.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tracy, and good luck on the show, the premiere this week. We can't wait, and we'll speak soon.
All right. See you guys later. Bye.
Bye.